So much for coming. I'm glad you're all here on a Saturday night learning how to improve your health and wellness. My name is Janae, and I am a registered nurse. I'm also a raw food and whole food chef. And where that combines, we're gonna go down the road where how being a chef and a nurse at the same time, how that's really benefited my life and helps me benefit lots of other people's lives. I'd like to start out by telling you a little bit about myself, a little bit about my story. I grew up in Washington State, and I was sick from a very early age. I remember being like 8 years old and missing 2/3 of school. Like 2 out of every 3 weeks, I'd be homesick with tonsillitis or the flu or pneumonia. I had pneumonia all the time, like every 6 months, and I was sick all the time. My mom took me to every doctor imaginable, and then when we ran out of medical doctors to go to, she started taking me to naturopaths, and then she started taking me to dietitians. And so I took all the medications and the drugs and the herbs and did all the treatments and did all the therapies and went on every crazy diet you've ever heard of, and I was still sick all the time and nothing seemed to work. And I'm going to tailor this to the gluten-free crowd today. My story goes a lot deeper, but where it pertains to gluten-free is my mom. She tried really hard to feed us healthy. So she was a good mom, and she had a wheat grinder, and she ground her own wheat, and she made whole wheat bread for us. And when she couldn't make whole wheat bread for us, she went to the store and bought whole wheat bread for us. And we had bread probably 3 or 4 times a day. We had it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. That was our staple, was this whole wheat bread. And my mom, when she was putting me on all these diets, she thought maybe I shouldn't be eating so much meat. So she tried to help us go meat-free, and what she replaced our meat with was lots of cheese, and she would make products, faux meat products out of gluten. She had, I remember, this gigantic bucket, 5-gallon bucket of gluten, and she would make faux beef jerky and faux sausage and hamburger and taco meat out of this gluten. And and whenever she made her bread, she wanted it nice and fluffy, so she'd add extra gluten to her homemade bread, and she really thought she was doing the best thing for all of our health. My health deteriorated over the years, and by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was so sick with allergies. I had food allergies, environmental allergies, hypersensitivities to everything. I had migraine headaches. My blood sugar was always fluctuating. I was passing out and throwing up all the time. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I was a mess. And to make matters worse, my intestines had stopped working. And so I could take an entire bottle of laxatives and I wouldn't have a BM for weeks at a time. And so I was getting super sick from that. My liver and my kidneys started to back up and not work very well because I was getting really toxic. All those toxins would come out my skin. I had super bad acne, and I was miserable. When I was in my mid-20s, I couldn't do anything. I was in and out of the hospital. I was in and out of doctor's offices. I couldn't work. I had to drop out of college. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't do anything except for just stay home in bed, going to the doctors to see what I could do. I traveled to Canada. I traveled all over the United States, seeking healers that could help me. And seriously, we tried everything. I eventually had to get some really serious surgeries. I had my whole large intestine removed, part of my small intestine, had various other surgeries, and just got sicker and sicker. I finally, after I got my large intestines removed, the doctors told me because I don't have a large intestine anymore, my body can't tolerate fiber. So they said no more fiber, so that means no more fruits, fresh fruits or vegetables, no more whole grains, nothing that has fiber in it. And I just didn't know what to do. And they said, all you can eat is meat and cheese and dairy, and that's it. And I'd been sick for so long that I didn't want to get sicker, and I just believed everything they said. And so that's what I did for a couple years, is I just ate meat and cheese and dairy and white bread. And I got sicker and sicker and sicker, and I got to the point where I seriously almost died many times. And I went to I knew inside myself, I knew that I needed more fresh food. I needed to feel better with the food I ate. I knew that every time I ate, I just felt worse, and my energy was down, and I felt, horrible. And so I knew something had to change with my food, but I tried all these crazy diets, every diet you can imagine for health purposes. And then I went to the fair, and I saw this blender called a Vitamix, and they were showing how you could put anything in there and it would liquefy anything. So they're putting like whole carrots and celery and everything in there and blending it up, and it turned it into this beautiful liquid that didn't have, you know, like just liquid. It liquefied anything. And I thought, maybe if I liquefied all of my fiber, then I could, you know, take in fresh fruits and vegetables, and it wouldn't hurt my, you know, it wouldn't hurt me because of the fiber. So I started doing that. I started feeling a little bit better, and I started adding more and more fresh fruits and vegetables, all blended up into my diet. Felt a little better. Well, I went to this camp, not a camp, it was a school to teach us a therapeutic intervention called food zonology. And it was in Montana, it was in Montana, and it was a 3-week class out in the middle of Montana. Nearest gas station was 100 miles away, and I was there for 3 weeks. All I had was the food they fed me. That's it. I didn't have access to anything else. In 3 weeks, they had put me on a raw food vegan diet, meaning all of their food was raw, it wasn't cooked, no animal products, and like 90% of what I ate was raw fruits and vegetables. In 3 weeks, I lost 30 pounds. My blood pressure went to normal, my cholesterol went to normal, my vision problems cleared up, my skin problems cleared up. All of these symptoms I had 20 other symptoms or more. All these symptoms cleared up, and I felt good for the first time in my life. And that's when I made the connection between, wow, what I eat and how I feel is connected directly, not indirectly, but it's completely directly. And so I knew I felt better, but I was also really hungry. I went from eating 4,000 calories a day of cheese and cream cheese and butter and bread and stuff like that to eating maybe 500 or 900 calories of fruits and vegetables. And so I dropped a lot of weight. I was really hungry, and I went home and I was just like, okay, anything. And I remember stopping at a hotel on the way to the airport, and I just got whatever I could get. And they had some Alfredo noodles, chicken Alfredo noodles with garlic buttered bread and cheese, and I remember just like just eating it. I was like, oh gosh, real food finally. And within several minutes, I was throwing up so violently that it hurt really bad. I couldn't stop throwing up for hours. And when I went home over the weeks, I found that every time I went back to my old diet, I would start to get my symptoms back. My vision would get blurred, my blood pressure would go up, my joint pain would come back. And then as soon as I started going back to the raw vegan diet, I started feeling better. And I just started experimenting that way, just listening to my body, doing intuitive eating, and just letting my body tell me where to go from here. So I'd try something. If I felt great, I'd keep doing it. If I didn't feel great, I would stop doing it, and I'd try something else. And over the years, doing this just trial and error approach, I looked into the raw community with 100% raw diet. I looked into the vegan community, the macrobiotic diet, and I looked into all these diets that were supposedly healthy, but all of them seemed to have some sort of flaw that made the diet not work. And so I looked into, for instance, the raw diet, and people on the raw diet had really great results a lot of time, but they couldn't sustain it. After months or years, they just couldn't keep going 100% raw anymore. So I wanted to figure out why. And people on the vegan diet that were, not eating any kind of animal products at all, they kind of looked skinny and pasty and emaciated. And I was like, okay, if it's so healthy, why don't they look healthy? And so I kind of checked into every diet, like, do the people look healthy? Do they act healthy? Do they have energy? Are they vibrant? Are they living long? Are they disease-free? And I tried to figure out what components of food choices made people healthy and what components of food choices didn't make people healthy. And that is where I base my philosophy on what foods I recommend and what I put into my recipes and how I coach people to change their health dramatically by changing their food choices. And as a nurse, when I worked in the hospital, I saw that most people were there because of food-induced illness, whether it was heart disease or diabetes or stroke or high blood pressure or depression and anxiety. Most people, unless they'd had some kind of traumatic accident, they were there because of food and lifestyle-induced illness. And instead of working in the hospital, where how the hospital treats that is they give you drugs and they give you surgery to treat the result of a poor diet and lifestyle choice. And so I wanted to teach people, as a nurse, I wanted to teach people how to stay out of the hospital. And if you're in the hospital, how to get out and how to make your body alive and vibrant and healthy, and how to teach people to live until they're very old and and stay healthy, you know, not deteriorating once you're 50, going downhill from there, but being strong and vibrant until your last breath. And so that's my philosophy, that's my story, and that's where I'm coming from. With gluten-free, I found that many people, even if they don't have celiac disease or gluten intolerance, most people do really well getting gluten out of their diet and their health improves. And I've had so many people tell me, oh, I'm not allergic to wheat, or I don't have celiac disease, so I can keep eating wheat, right? And I tell them, just go off wheat for a month and just see how you feel. And most people find that they feel better getting the gluten out of their diet, even just for a little while. And that's kind of the test I put people to, just to, you know, so they can prove to themselves whether or not it's going to work. Now, the title of this class today is A New Perspective on Gluten-Free. And normally, you can go on the internet to any gluten-free blog and you can get recipes on how to make, you know, bread products and cookies and pastries and everything like this with alternative flours and alternative ingredients. But I think one thing that the gluten-free community as a whole is really missing out on is the key principle that I focus my classes on, and that is nutrition density. It's not so, what you're not eating is important. So keeping gluten and sugar and high fructose corn syrup and soy and other disease-promoting foods, processed food out of your diet, that's important. But what's just as important as what you don't put into your mouth is what you do put into your mouth. And that's where nutrition density comes in. Nutrition density is basically what is the ratio between the calories in a food and how many micronutrients are in the food. Just so you know what micronutrients are, most dietitians and people that talk about food, they talk about the macronutrients. Macro means big. The macronutrients are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And most people that focus on different diets focus on the macronutrients. So, you know, adjusting your carbohydrate for a diet, or adjusting your fats for a diet, or adjusting your protein ratio in a diet. And that may bring weight loss, but it does not bring health, and it does not reduce your risk of disease. And people can be skinny and lose weight and still not be healthy, and that's the big thing we're missing. And people can get all the gluten out of their diet and still not be healthy. So what we want to talk about is nutrition density. Micronutrients, micro means small, so your micronutrients are all your vitamins, minerals, all the phytochemicals that are in plant food, your antioxidants. So for instance, the color in fruits and vegetables, the brighter the color is, the more antioxidants are in that fruit or vegetable. So the more brightly colored foods you can eat, the better your diet is at getting all the free radicals out of your body and reducing your risk of cancer and disease. So what we want to do is make sure that the ratio of calories to micronutrients is very high. So for instance, kale is a very high micronutrient or nutrition dense food. It doesn't have very many calories, but it does have lots of fiber, and it has tons of micronutrients in it and lots of antioxidants. On the other end of the spectrum, let's take hydrogenated oil like Crisco, for instance. Tons of calories, zero nutrition. So when we're making a diet for health to reduce disease and to increase health, we need to make sure that we're eating as high on that nutrition density scale as possible and getting rid of all the or the low nutrition density foods. Does that make sense? So, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what I teach in my basic class. The things you want to stay away from that are super low nutrition density are things like hydrogenated oil, high fructose corn syrup, sugar, any kind of processed foods, anything that has been tampered with as a food, chemicals, MSG, those things are very low nutrition density. White flour, white pasta, white rice. Up on the high nutrition density end of things are your dark leafy green vegetables like kale and chard and spinach and lettuce, and your fresh fruits and your fresh vegetables, and especially organic, local, in-season fruits and vegetables. Those have a higher nutrition density than just conventional fruits and vegetables. So that's basically the philosophy where I'm coming from. We don't just want to get rid of gluten. We want to increase the micronutrients in our diet so that we are putting so much nutrition into our bodies that our bodies will heal themselves. Now, I just want to give you a brief overview of what is celiac disease and why do we have gluten sensitivities. Gluten is a protein in wheat that makes it really sticky and gluey. That's what makes your bread stick together. It makes your pastries and stuff nice and fluffy, and it's the glue that holds all the bread products together. Over the last 50 years, wheat farmers and food technologists have hybridized wheat to increase the amount of gluten in wheat. So 50 years ago, wheat had a certain percentage of gluten in it. Now it has a lot more gluten in it. What that does is it makes things sweeter, and it makes things fluffier, and it makes bread work. It makes bread manufacturing a lot easier. And but the downside of that is people's bodies are not reacting very well to the gluten. For most people, when the gluten comes into their body, your immune system attacks that protein as a foreign substance in your body, and it causes a hyperinflammation response. So you eat the gluten, the little gluten protein particles are in your intestines, and your immune system starts to attack that protein, and it also starts to attack the cell lining of your intestines. So your immune system is attacking your own body because of these excess gluten proteins. What happens after your immune system's been attacking your body for a while, the cells of your digestive tract, so pretend you've got your intestines, they're a tube, and that's where all the food goes through. What happens is the cells of your intestines start to break down, and instead of all the cells being fit together really tightly so the food can travel through your intestines and not leak out, the cells start to come apart from each other, and so you have things leaking out through the cell junctions of your intestines out into your gut, and your gut is where about 80% of your immune system is. And so when you have all those foreign substances and all that food that was in your intestines leaking out into your gut, your immune system attacks that, and that is when you get your serious autoimmune reactions and lots of food allergies and food and environmental sensitivities. So going to a gluten-free diet is about, number one, getting rid of that irritant, which is the gluten, and second of all, healing your intestinal lining and healing your immune system and ramping down that hyper-inflammatory response so that your immune system is not attacking your body anymore. So it's twofold, all right? So we need to get rid of the irritant and then heal your intestines back up again. The two ways that you heal your intestines back up again is, number one, by eating highly nutritionally dense foods. Whenever you give your body massive amounts of nutrition, and I'm talking about micronutrients, your body is going to have all the building blocks to repair your body and to get you healthy again. The second thing it does is oh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So it ramps down your immune system, and then it doesn't give you anything to irritate it anymore, and then plus you're giving yourself all the healthy nutrition you need, okay? So that's what we want to do. So for instance, when I first started looking into the gluten-free diet, I noticed that you can get bread, you can get pasta, you can get cookies, crackers, chips, everything that says gluten-free on the package, but when I tried it, I'm kind of like my own lab rat. I just try things, and then if it works, great, and if it doesn't, I move on. And so what I do is I just experiment. And so I tried this gluten-free bread, and every time I ate it, I felt really sick. Or I tried gluten-free pasta or crackers, and I just felt kind of gross every time I ate it, nauseous and not very good. And so I looked into why am I not eating gluten, but I still feel gross? So I started label reading, and when you look on the back of boxes, hang on, let me get a box for you. Let's see if okay. I'm going to give you a little lesson in label reading. So if you see, there's this little nutrition facts, and that has to legally be on all packaged foods, okay? So it tells you your total fat and your cholesterol, your sodium, potassium, all that. Most people just look at this little box and they go, oh, look, there's low calories, low fat, low cholesterol, yes, it's healthy for me. And if they label read, that's about as far as they go with label reading. The problem is, that's not the important part. Manufacturers can really manipulate this information to make something look healthy, even though it's not. What we need to start doing is just ignoring this box and start paying really careful attention to right here where it says ingredients. And the ingredients will tell us what kinds of food and what is in that box. And the ingredients can still be manipulated, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but they're manipulated a lot less than this nutrition facts box. So I started reading the ingredients, and I found that in most of the gluten-free products that I was eating, they were made out of white rice flour, which is a highly processed food, tapioca starch, potato starch, and lots of other chemicals and additives to make it taste and feel like you were having the real bread experience or the real cracker experience. But when you looked at that, there's zero nutrition in it. It's all made from starches, which have zero nutrition density, and refined flours, zero nutrition density, and there was really no nutrition in there. And so I found that if I did eat a product that didn't make me sick, it was because it was made from a whole food, from simple whole foods without any additives, and there was none of that zero nutrition dense products in the food. So as I continued on, I found that I did some more research, and I found that even in the gluten-free products, you can have a certain amount of gluten in there that's tolerable. So many things have gluten in them that aren't labeled with gluten. For instance, gluten is used as a thickener, and they don't have to say there's gluten in there, but it can say natural thickeners or natural flavors, and it's really gluten, but they don't have to call it gluten on the package. And if there's, I think it's like 20 parts per million, if it's below that range, they can still say gluten-free on the package. So I found that a lot of gluten-free products that are highly processed, they don't have a lot of nutrition density, they still have trace amounts of gluten in them, and you're just filling your body up with empty calories. So I found that basically what I had to do is make everything at home. There's a few select packaged products I use, but most of the time, you just have to make your own food at home. Because I'm a graduate student right now, and I'm a mom, and I'm trying to run Cafe Janae, I don't have time to be in the kitchen cooking all day. So my recipes are very quick, very easy, very simple, and it's something that you can just do in a matter of minutes or less than a half hour to get really delicious food in a short amount of time and really easy time. The other thing is, when you're making things at home, you can make sure it's fresh, you can make sure it's whole food, you can make sure it's non-refined, and you can make sure that everything comes from very simple products. So I want to just show you some options. A lot of people think, okay, so if I can't even eat the packaged gluten-free products anymore, and I can't eat the gluten products, what am I going to eat? And I really want to emphasize, when you're changing your diet and lifestyle, the first rule is make sure you're not depriving yourself. If you take something away, make sure you replace it with something even better so you don't even miss it. If you feel like you're deprived, if you feel like you're missing out, if you feel like you have to give up your favorite thing, it's not going to be sustainable. You might be able to torture yourself for a little while, but you won't be able to sustain this. And that's what this is a lifelong lifestyle change. This isn't just a fad diet. This isn't something you can do for a little while and quit. It's something that you need to continue for the rest of your life to make sure you maintain really great health. So what I love to do, I love food. Food is my favorite thing ever. I love going to restaurants and eating whatever's the most delicious thing on the menu. And usually when I get home, I feel kind of sick, but I remember how good it tastes, and then I can go home and recreate it with healthy whole food and raw food ingredients. And so that's what a lot of my recipes in my cookbooks are, is recreations of things that I've tasted other places, and I've gone and made that same recipe, tried to get the same taste and texture and the same comfort. Everybody eats, I eat for comfort. I'm sure everybody else does too. I want that same comfort factor in all of my food. I also have a daughter who does not do well with being deprived of things that she sees all of her friends eating. So a lot of my food is geared towards, like, what can I give her that looks and tastes and mimics what her friends are eating, but it's good for her and it's not candy bars and soda and junk food. And so with every class, I have a recipe book that goes with every class. So if you're interested in the recipes I'm talking about, at the end of class, you can sign up for a gluten-free recipe book. It's got 25 to 30 different gluten-free recipes in it that have been approved by my daughter and me and my family. And it's $20 if you're interested in that, so you can ask about that later after the class. So all the recipes I'm doing today and 25 or 30 more are going to be in that recipe book. Let's start out with cookies. Cookies are a big comfort food that gluten-free people have a hard time giving up. And if you look on prepackaged gluten-free cookies, they're made out of tapioca starch and potato starch and xanthan gum and white rice flour and lots of non-nutrition dense foods. And usually when you take the gluten out of food, you got to put something in it to make it taste better. So there's hydrogenated oil and dairy products and soy and lots of sugar and fructose corn syrup. So we want to avoid all of those at the same time as creating like a really tasty food experience for ourselves. These peanut butter cookies I'm going to show you are completely raw, made out of all raw food. People are usually amazed because they're like, okay, how do you not use any kind of grain at all and still make a peanut butter cookie? I think you're going to be amazed at how easy and how tasty these are. And they're super satisfying too. Kids love them. So what I've started out with is it's a mixture of pecans and walnuts. We're just going to put these in a food processor. You guys are going to love how fast that this is done. And all you're going to do is blend these up into a flour. So I'm just going to pulse this until all those nuts turn into flour. All right. Now, pecans and walnuts, you want to get them raw so they haven't been roasted and salted, and they're very high in your omega-3 fats, lots of healthy fats in there for you. They're also high in fiber and minerals, and the pecans make the cookies taste kind of buttery, so that's why I like using half pecans and half walnuts. Very high in vitamin E, which is an antioxidant that's good for your skin and good for your organs. There you go. So all you do is make that into a flour, take it out of the food processor, and then what we're going to do next is the sweetening. Now, in a lot of my classes, I use raw local honey or maple syrup, but I love these cookies because they're made with, no sweeteners except for whole food sweeteners. I've got some dates in here, and all I've done is taken the little pits out of the dates, throw those in the food processor with some raisins. And that's going to be what's sweetening up our cookies. That's just okay. If your dates are really soft, this will go faster than if they're not so soft. So hang on one more second. Okay. After your dates and raisins are chopped up a bit, all you're going to do is put in some peanut butter. Now make sure when you're buying peanut butter, most peanut butter has hydrogenated oil and sugar or high fructose corn syrup in it and other additives. You want to make sure when you're eating peanut butter that the only ingredients in your peanut butter are peanuts and salt, if you want some salt in your peanut butter. Be very vigilant about reading ingredients. Now, a lot of people with gluten sensitivities are also sensitive to other foods. The most typical foods that people are sensitive to are soy, eggs, dairy, and corn, and sometimes peanuts. Interestingly enough, all those foods that people are sensitive to, those are also foods that ramp up your immune system, just like wheat does. So what we really want to do is stay away from dairy and soy and corn and any genetically modified organism. And if you're allergic to peanuts, you can totally make this recipe with almond butter instead of peanut butter, if that helps.
Did you drop the walnuts from the pecan mix as well?
You can, yeah. And with raw food, it's really hard to mess up raw food. So you can just replace the walnuts with pecans or use a different kind of nut. It might change the texture and the taste a little bit, but really you can alternate. You can add things in and out, and it's hard to mess it up no matter what you do. So all I put in there was some salt, some natural sea salt, some vanilla, some peanut butter, and now we're going to put the flour back in, the nut flour. All right, I'm going to give you guys some of these to taste, and I know you're going to love it. So what happens is it comes out like this, and you just take a little cookie scoop, or you can roll it into balls like this and make little cookies out of it, and it holds together really nice. What we do in our house is we make a whole bunch of these, make them into cookies and stick them in the fridge or the freezer, and then whenever we have a sweet tooth or we just need something sweet, we go to the freezer and we've got like 5 or 6 different things in there. We've got some raw dairy-free cheesecake and raw chocolates and raw peanut butter cookies. So we've got our freezer and our refrigerator full of all these treats, and that way when we need something sweet, we don't have to go, oh gosh, what can I make? And it's going to take a while, and so I'll just eat a candy bar or something. We never have that come up because we've got a lot of things on hand that we've made in advance, and so whenever we get the urge to eat something sweet, we've got something sweet in the freezer or the fridge. I just remembered when I was telling you earlier about what you had to do to repair your intestines, and then I forgot what I was talking about. The second thing you need to do to repair your gut is to improve your flora. So your friendly flora, or the friendly bacteria that's in your intestines, that gets damaged or destroyed when you eat junk foods, processed foods, hydrogenated oil, high fructose corn syrup, or when your immune system is just constantly attacking your tissues. So along with getting rid of the gluten and all the allergens and the irritants and giving yourself high nutrition density, you also need to get on a really good probiotic program to rebuild all that healthy bacterial flora in your intestines, and that will help to repair all those cell junctions in your intestines and tighten everything back up again so that you don't have that leaky gut syndrome anymore. All right, so I'm going to send this back to Brian, and he's going to let you guys taste this, and you'll have to let me know what you think. And again, if you want to, this is about making something that you love. So, for instance, with my recipes, if it's not sweet enough for you, put in some more raisins or dates. If it's not salty enough for you, put a little more salt in it. I give you the basic recipe, and everybody's taste buds are a little bit different. So if you want it sweeter, you can even add in a little bit of maple syrup or a little bit of raw local honey to make it sweeter and stick a little bit better. So take my recipes as a guide and then tweak them to your taste, because some people will taste this and think, oh, it's not salty enough. Fine, add more salt. You know, it's really easy to make things taste the way you want. All right, questions? Yes, so I've got it's called a Getting Started Guide, and it's got all the basics in there, like what to eat, what not to eat, basic philosophy, and then I've got the gluten-free recipes in there. So if you buy the cookbook, all of that will be in there. So if you're madly taking notes, and I've had a couple people say, we take notes as fast as we can, and we can't keep up with you. So if that's you, I've got the Getting Started Guide that's included with tonight. I saw another hand while I was talking. Are there any other questions? Yes? All right. No more. All right. Yes. Yes, thank you. All right, hang on. We're setting up for the next one. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So I'd just like to mention that Good Earth is sponsoring this event tonight, and I'd just like to give a round of applause for Good Earth for sponsoring this. everything, all my food tonight is donated by Good Earth. So everything I'm doing today, you can get all these products at Good Earth. And I love it that Good Earth is really invested in this community and providing classes to teach you all about good health. Yes? Generally speaking, the organic wheat has not been tampered with as much as the conventional wheats. And I've heard some people say that if they go outside of the US, like if they go to Europe and eat the wheat in Europe, they don't get the reactions that they get here because their wheat hasn't been tampered with either. So getting it organic definitely reduces your chances of having the wheat tampered with. And that goes for all the grains as well. Generally, American products are tampered with, genetically engineered, and hybridized a lot more than if you go other places. So there's a couple issues with organic grains. First issue is non-organic grains are very high in heavy metals because of the fertilizers they use and the pesticides and everything. So you're getting a pretty high heavy metal content or toxicity content. You're also getting the pesticide and herbicide and fertilizer toxins in your non-organic grains, and they've been genetically engineered or genetically modified or hybridized. So when I buy my grains, I try to buy them domestic and organic. Also, any food that comes from outside of the United States it has to be irradiated at the border before it comes in. So just keep in mind, even if you're buying something organic and it's not domestic, you're going to have it irradiated before it comes into the U.S. And there's a whole continuum of how to, a peach is not a peach is not a peach, okay? The best peach you can eat is fresh off an organic tree when it's been ripened on the tree to perfection. Eat it straight away right when it's been picked. If it's been picked green, it's going to have a lower nutrition density. If it's been shipped a long ways and it's been sitting around for a while, it's going to have a lower nutrition density. If it's not organic, it's going to have a lower nutrition density. If it's been frozen or cooked, it's going to have a lower nutrition density. So you can eat a peach and it can have, a super high nutrition density or a moderate nutrition density depending on where you get it, how it's been processed, if it's organic or not, and how long it's been off the tree, or if it's been ripened on the tree. When fruits that come off of trees and berries, if the last few days of their ripening, so the time when they're like almost ripe to the time when they're perfectly ripe, that's when most of the antioxidants are developed in the fruit. So if your fruit is picked green, the antioxidant content is going to be way lower than if it's picked fresh. So that's another reason why I really support local produce and organic produce as well, just so you can get the most nutrition value out of whatever it is you're eating. All right, and just to make sure everybody, we've got a sign-up sheet in the back. If you leave me your name and your email, I can send you information about future free classes. I send out free recipes all the time. When I'm once a month, I'm on Channel 4 and Channel 30 doing recipes. I'll send you those recipes. So make sure you leave your name and your email at the back. Make sure you get a little raffle ticket because we'll be having a raffle at the end. And I'd like to thank Brian in the back for being my awesome man slave. He does everything for me. So thank you, Brian. Everybody, thank you for Brian. All right, along with cookies and baked goods, another comfort food that people really miss when they go on a gluten-free diet is pasta. And I have tried all the gluten-free pastas out there, trust me. And how do I say this? A lot of grain products are processed in factories that aren't gluten safe. Okay, so let's say they have a pasta factory and they make wheat pasta, but then they make your gluten-free pasta on it afterwards. So depending on how sensitive you are to gluten, some people, if they touch it, they get a reaction. If they breathe it, they get a reaction. If they even have one little tiny speck of it, they get a reaction. So if you're that sensitive, make sure that you're staying away from all processed foods and you're just making your foods yourself, because all processed foods are going to be contaminated in some way with gluten, just because that's the way food factories work. If you're not that sensitive to gluten, there are some products that I have tried and that I like that are packaged products, not very many, but a few, and this is one of them. Good Earth sells this one, and Tink Yada, I think I'm saying that right. Anyway, you can come look at this. This is a brown rice pasta, and the reason I like it is because number one, it's organic. Number two, if you look on the ingredients, all that's in there is organic brown rice and water. That's it. So there's no fillers, no binders, no starches, no nothing. It's just whole grain brown rice and water. So when you're looking at your labels, make sure that that's what you're looking for. The reason I like this brand over other brands is because every other brand I've tried of like spelt pasta, corn pasta, rice pasta, it just gets all gooey and sticky, and it's just like you cook it and no matter what you do, it just turns into a big clumpy mess. And this one works really well. It cooks up well, and then if you overcook it, it doesn't get mushy, and it can go through some abuse without getting gross. So if you're going to do brown rice pasta, I totally recommend this brand. I haven't found another brand that I like as well. I'll put those there for you to look at afterwards. So, like I was saying before, a lot of people that go to gluten-free, even if they stop eating gluten, they start eating other comfort foods instead, which, they start eating lots of cheese or dairy or soy products or lots of salt or lots of sweet things. What we want to do is give you that same satiation, that same comfort with your food without giving you low nutrition dense foods. So I have created this cheese sauce, which works really great for a lot of things. And you're going to be amazed that out of Whole Foods, I can make a non-dairy cheese sauce that actually kind of tastes like cheese sauce. I think you'll love it. So what I'm going to use for my cheese sauce here is some cashews. Now when you're using, make sure again that you use raw, non-toasted, non-salted nuts. And these raw cashews, I've soaked them until they just get really puffy. And probably like 3 or 4 hours you soak them. And then you rinse them off, and they're all ready to go. When you soak nuts, it does two things. First of all, it makes it really soft so you can blend it up. And second of all your nuts and seeds have enzyme inhibitors or phytic acid on the outside. And what that does is it prevents the seed from sprouting too soon before it's planted and before it's ready to grow. And it also protects the seeds from animals or birds that are eating it. The problem is phytic acid and those enzyme inhibitors, they really irritate the lining of your intestines and your stomach. And again, what we're trying to do is get rid of the irritants and heal up our gut lining. And so make sure that when you're eating nuts and seeds that you soak them first and rinse it off, and that's going to get rid of those enzyme inhibitors and the phytic acid on the outside. If you want your nuts to be crunchy again, you just put them either in a dehydrator or in the oven on a very low temperature, whatever the lowest temperature in your oven is, and you just dry them back out again until they're crispy, and then you can make trail mix and whatever else you want with your crunchy nuts. But otherwise, you can just leave them. These are just still wet from soaking. I just want to say a word about high-speed blenders. A lot of my recipes, you have to have a high-speed blender. These can liquefy anything. So some people have tried my recipes with just a regular blender. And first of all, it probably will burn your blender out because most of my stuff is really thick. And second of all, regular blenders won't liquefy things the same way. So if you try to make this cheese sauce in a regular blender, it'll still taste the same. It'll just be a little bit chunky or gritty. You won't get that smooth, cheesy consistency. If you're transitioning to a healthy, raw foods, whole foods diet, I cannot live without this thing. There's two companies, Blendtec and Vitamix. They both make really great high-speed blenders. And seriously, I use this every day, probably 3-4 times a day. I make my green smoothies with it. I make regular smoothies with it. I make all my cheese sauces and cheesecakes and dips and sauces and salad dressings. It pretty much does everything. So if you're really serious about this lifestyle change, if there's one thing that I can't live without, it's the high-speed blender. So I cannot promote it enough, mostly because most of my recipes require this, but also it just makes my life easier, and it makes the food taste better and the texture better, and it makes it easier to go dairy-free and gluten-free and do all that. If you're interested in this, you can go on my website, and there's there's little buttons for Blendtec and Vitamix that'll take you to their site so you can just check it out and see what their products are and what the prices are. I remember when I saw this at the fair, remember when I told you I went there and they were liquefying carrots and celery and stuff, and I saw the sticker price and it was like $400. I was just like, are you kidding me? $400 for a blender? I wasn't going to do it, and so I tried to do the same thing in a regular blender. I got the Costco blender and the Kmart blender and the Walmart blender, and I probably went through 10 different blenders, and I'd burned the motor out of all of them, and they just, no blender lasted more than a week for me. Didn't get the results. I coughed up the $400 for the blender, and seriously, I love it. They have a 7-year warranty, and so if anything goes wrong with it in 7 years, they'll replace it or repair it for you for free. So it's a really great investment. I can't recommend it high enough. Yes? There's 2 companies, Blendtec or Vitamix, and they both have great products. And you can go to my website and get a little button for them if you want to check them out.
I was just going to say, I got mine from Costco.
Yeah.
I remember it was Costco.
Yeah, Costco has great deals on it. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so, yes, and the warranty's great. I've probably, my Vitamix, this is a Blendtec, but my Vitamix, I've had to send it back twice because I'm not very nice to my blenders. I'm really rough on them, and their customer service is awesome, so they just take it right back and fix it or repair it for you or exchange it. Okay, so cheese sauce. I'm starting out with some soaked cashews, and this is going to be the creamy, like fatty part of the cheese sauce that's going to make you think like you're eating real cheese. And then I'm going to put in some red peppers. A lot of people don't know that red peppers have more vitamin C than oranges. So a lot of people, if I say, what has vitamin C? They'll say citrus, oranges. Peppers have many times more vitamin C and antioxidants than oranges and citrus do. Make sure they're raw and organic again. I'm going to put in a couple cloves of garlic. When you eat raw garlic, garlic is an antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal agent, so it really helps with boosting your immune system, helping you ward off coughs and flus and colds, and just helping you to be healthier. A year, well, actually I've had mono a few times. Every time I get mono, it's like nothing else will help it work, and I do the garlic therapy, and I'm eating lots of garlic, like raw garlic, and it's amazing. So it even helps you get rid of mono and viruses and stuff like that. You have to know how to do it. I'm just singing my praises to garlic. Don't try it unless you know how, but it's such a powerful antibiotic and antiviral that it'll even heal your body from stuff like that. It's fresh lemon juice that I've squeezed from a lemon. This is nutritional yeast. You can get this here in the bulk section, or I think you can get a little pre-packaged of it. Nutritional yeast is really high in your B vitamins, and it imparts like a cheesy flavor to your dishes. So I like using that to fool people into thinking they're eating cheese. And then I've just got some sweet onion in here. Be careful with your onions. If you use regular yellow onions, you'll have that yellow onion bite to it, so it'll kind of burn your tongue a little bit. If you use sweet onions, it's more mild, so it'll kind of give it the onion flavor without giving you that strong bite that you get from yellow onions. And then this is tahini. Tahini is just ground up sesame seeds, so like peanut butter is ground up peanuts. This is like the peanut butter of sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are very high in calcium, and they have great fiber, and they have great mineral content in them. And we lost the salt. Hang on just a second. Do you know where the salt is? Yes. Yes.
What did you add after the peppers? It seemed like you might have added.
Let's see. We've got cashews, peppers, garlic, lemon juice. Not yet. I'm looking for it. It disappeared. Oh, yeah. Here's the recipe. Peppers, cashews, sesame, tahini, nutritional yeast, onion, garlic, lemon juice, and then salt. If you can get organic tahini, you can. If you've got a high-speed blender, it'll liquefy them. But if you don't have a high-speed blender, it'll just leave the sesame seeds whole. Correct. I found that sesame seeds don't usually get as smooth as a tahini does. So I usually use tahini just because I want a smooth cheese sauce. And so yes, you can totally use sesame seeds if you want. And then What was I just going to say about sesame seeds? Oh, yes. Make sure that your tahini is in glass. Anything that's fat is a solvent, okay? So fat dissolves things, and if you've got fat in plastic, it's going to dissolve the plastic from the container, and you're going to have a lot of those plastic toxins in your food. So make sure that anytime you're getting peanut butter or almond butter, tahini, anything that's fatty, it's best if you can get it in a glass container, and then you're not going to have all those plastic toxins in your fatty foods. Okay. Let's blend this baby up. Okay, now the other cool thing about these blenders is they have such powerful motors that you can actually boil water in here. So you can make soups and puddings and heat up your stuff in here. You can see the steam coming off of it. It warmed it up a little bit. So you can, if you're making soups or something that needs to be warm, you can just like keep this on high, and after a minute or two it will heat it up for you. So if you're going completely raw, the point of raw is to not kill the enzymes and the nutrients and the antioxidants in your food. So vitamin A, C, and E, which are your antioxidants, they're very heat sensitive. So if you heat them up, it's going to kill those antioxidants. Also, enzymes are very temperature sensitive. So if you want to keep your food raw, which is going to be the best for your digestion and the nutrient density, you need to keep it below 115 degrees, preferably down towards 105 degrees. So when you're heating things up in the blender, just make sure, know that it will boil water in there, so just make sure that it doesn't get too hot and kill all your nutrients. I'm just going to taste this. Okay. That's delicious. I just need to blend it a little bit more to get it super smooth and a little bit warmer. 1 second. All right, the cookies took what, 5 or 10 minutes? The cheese sauce took 5 or 10 minutes, so this is really quick food. Now what we love doing with this is there's several things you can do with it. One is you can make a really killer macaroni and cheese with it. So I've got some brown rice noodles here that we've cooked up, and you can just mix it in, and it's just like Kraft macaroni and cheese, but I think it tastes way better. Plus, nutrient density is really high. Digestion is super easy for this. It's made out of raw, whole, organic foods. Another thing you can do with this is you can mix it up with a little bit of salsa and have like a cheesy salsa dip for whatever you want. That's fantastic. I make a red pepper risotto out of it. So I cook either organic quinoa or organic brown rice, and you mix this in, and then you can have, it's a really yummy, creamy risotto, and you can add steamed vegetables or whatever you want. It's also good for a vegetable or chip or cracker dip, and a really good vegetable cheese sauce. So if you steam cauliflower or broccoli or asparagus, it makes a super good cheese sauce over the top of it. So this is really amazing multi-purpose cheese sauce that I think you're going to love. I'll send it back to Brian, and he's going to serve you up some on some gluten-free brown rice noodles. Now just note, we had to tell you about it. We made a mistake. We were looking for this brand in the store when we bought it, and we accidentally got a different brand that I'm not going to tell you about. So the noodles are going to be a little bit grainy. Just know that if you get this kind, the noodles will be a lot better texture than the noodles we're feeding you. Sorry, whoops. Okay, how'd you guys like the cookies? Yeah? So the question is this sustainable? Can you do this? Like if you had recipes that made you feel satisfied, filled you up, calmed down your cravings, made you feel like you weren't missing out on the best things in life, like could you do this? Is this sustainable?
What about school lunches?
Awesome question. Okay, we have to deal with that at my house all the time. I've got a 9-year-old daughter, and she loves to be part of the crowd. Whatever her friends are doing, that's what she needs to do. So with school lunches, what we've tried to do is make it look and taste and feel the same as what her friends are eating. So I have, for instance, her friends eat lots of candy bars. So I make raw vegan chocolate for her, and I make like the last class I did some Reese's Pieces peanut butter cup type thing. So I made it out of raw chocolate and raw peanut butter, well, as raw as peanut butter gets anyway, so raw peanut butter filling in the middle, and she loves it. She loves going to her friends and being like, ooh, I'm eating Reese's Pieces, and she loves that. Some good ideas for lunches that I love is you don't have, Americans just think they have to have bread with everything, you know, bread with every meal, bread with every sandwich, and like that's the only option is sandwiches. And honestly, when I was changing my diet over, that was hard for me because seriously, I had bread for breakfast, bread for lunch, bread for dinner, bread for snacks. I never ate anything without tortillas or bread or something like that. Very difficult. It takes a bit of mind changing, you know, just training yourself to know that there's other options. So what do we do for sandwiches now? We have several different options. So we either wrap things like in collard greens or romaine lettuce and make like a little burrito out of it with, so like we'll take that cheese sauce, and a really good sandwich is like some mushrooms and cheese sauce and tomatoes and sprouts and stuff like that, and then you roll it up either in romaine lettuce or a collard green or something. And if you roll it up like in plastic wrap, you can make it so it's a burrito and it kind of sticks together, and you can just peel the plastic wrap off of it as you eat it, and that's great. That's great for packing lunches. You can also do you know, like rice and beans with cheese sauce or guacamole and roll that up. So you got to just redefine what a sandwich is, redefine what a meal is without including bread. So that takes a bit of creativity, and my recipe books definitely help out with that. What we also do is we get away from sandwiches and start making lots of bowls. So we have like little, you know, bowls with lids on them, and we do like grain and beans or pudding or, you know, brown rice or stuff like that. Some other things you can do to make sandwich type or wrap type things is you can use seaweed wrappers. So nori wrappers are like squares of nori seaweed, and you can wrap up, like we just shred vegetables like cucumbers and carrots and zucchini and beets, and then you can put in a little brown rice if you want, or and then you put like a nut sauce or an almond sauce or some kind of nut pate in there and roll that up, and that makes for a really good lunch. My daughter's favorite is rice wrappers. They're like the Asian Thai rice wrappers, and they're just come in a circle like this. You soak them, and then her favorite, every time I make this, it's crazy. I'm like, you're jumping for joy when I'm serving you vegetables, and that's it. She loves taking those and like shredding cucumbers and carrots, and we make these little zucchini noodles out of with a spiral slicer, and then we make peanut sauce to go with it, and she makes these little the spring rolls. They're kind of like Thai fresh spring rolls, and she has a little bit of dip to go with that. So that's basically what we do, is just, you know, either wrap it in lettuce or nori or a spring roll wrap. If you have a dehydrator, I've got lots of recipes for raw and gluten-free crackers and wraps and breads. Those are a lot more labor intensive, and you've got to have a dehydrator to make those work. But if you're interested in those recipes, I've got faux bread recipes, as you know, wrap recipes as well. So does that answer your question? So with the, you know, like if she wants candy bars, I send her with candy bars, but they're raw candy bars. If she wants soda, we make you know, kombucha or you know, we make healthy soda or made out of juice or something for home. If she wants sandwiches, we, you know, she doesn't have to have 100% gluten-free, so we get organic spelt bread for her, and we give her, you know, that's the one meal of the day where she can have bread is for lunch if she wants to have a sandwich with kids. You can't do spelt if you're, you know, all gluten-free, but there's options out there. I just want to let you guys give a list of, do you guys know like what grains are gluten-free and what grains aren't? Do you guys want to know that? Pardon? Right, so actually the list is a bit longer than that. So the grains that do have gluten in them, I'm just going to read the list so I don't leave any out. Wheat, kamut, spelt, barley, rye, and when you're buying noodles and stuff, they might call it semolina or durum, triticale, and oats are oats are controversial. Like some people say they're gluten-free and some people say they're not gluten-free. So depending on how sensitive you are to gluten, you may or may not want to try gluten-free oats or organic oats. So on the non-gluten side is corn. A little caveat about corn. Corn is one of the most genetically engineered, genetically modified hybridized plants out there. Highly allergenic. People are sensitive to it. It causes your inflammatory response to go crazy. So I recommend against corn unless it's organic. And even with organic corn, limit it. So like, don't make that a big part of your diet. Brown rice. Any kind of rice is gluten-free, but I recommend brown rice. Stay away from white rice because it's refined. Tapioca, which is made from a cassava root. I'm not sure how to say it. Amaranth. Oh, sorry? Cassava, thank you. Amaranth, which is a little tiny grain or seed. Arrowroot, which arrowroot is it's a replacement for cornstarch. So if you're trying to stay away from corn because it's highly inflammatory, you can use arrowroot, and it does the same thing with thickening up your liquids and your sauces and stuff like that. Millet is gluten-free. Quinoa, sorghum, taro, teff, chia seed, buckwheat, and chickpeas. And oats are kind of on both lists. You have to decide if oats are going to work for you or not. Make sure if you're reading labels, if you do eat processed food, which I recommend against, make sure that you don't eat things that have natural flavoring in the ingredients. That's always going to have gluten in it and usually MSG. And if it has a stabilizer or a thickener in it, generally those have gluten in them as well. So you got to read your labels really carefully. And I would just recommend staying away from processed foods altogether. Do we have any questions before I move on? Yeah. So non-gluten grains? Yes. Okay, corn, brown rice, tapioca, amaranth, arrowroot, millet, quinoa, sorghum, taro, teff, chia seed, yam, buckwheat, and chickpea or garbanzo flour. Now, another caveat for these gluten-free grains, if you're going to be using these gluten-free grains, most of these come in a refined and a non-refined format. So make sure that if you're eating rice, it's not white rice. Make sure it's the brown rice. There's like 5 different kinds of brown rice to choose from, or natural rice. You can have wild rice, there's purple rice, there's red rice, there's brown rice, there's short grain brown rice. So there's lots of things to choose from. Just make sure it's a whole grain that's organic and it hasn't been tampered with. And let's see. Oh, and for your grains, for people that are trying to heal up their gut lining, it's really important to know that the outside of grains and seeds also have enzyme inhibitors and the phytic acid on the outsides of the grains. So if you have recipes that show you how to soak or ferment your grains before you use them, it's going to make them a lot more digestible because you won't have all those enzyme inhibitors. But also when you soak seeds and grains, it starts the germination process, and that really increases the nutrition density of that grain. So by soaking them as part of your preparation of those grains and seeds, you're increasing the nutrients and you're decreasing the amount of resistance in your digestive tract that will happen when you're trying to eat those. Any questions? Yes? Raw peanut butter, you can make it yourself. If you have a high-speed blender, you can make it yourself. Just get raw peanuts and throw it in there and mix it into peanut butter. Or you can... Yeah, it's difficult to find. I would recommend when you're getting raw peanuts that you get organic raw peanuts too. They have, just a second. They have a mold on them that is highly allergenic. So organic peanuts have less of that. And I think Good Earth in their bulk section has raw peanuts. Do you? Okay, are those raw? Okay. Yeah, I think they're roasted. She's asking about raw peanuts. So I think they have raw peanuts in their bulk section. I'm pretty sure they have raw peanut butter in jars. And then they have their roasted peanuts in the peanut butter maker. And if you have a high-speed blender, you can just make it yourself. If you have a food processor, you can also make your own peanut butter. It takes a little bit longer. It takes like 15 minutes. You just got to let it process for a long time. But you can make your own peanut butter in just a regular food processor as well. OK, I saw another hand. Who had a question? Back there? Did somebody else have a question? Yes? Yeah.
And it's expensive to do it for one because you can't eat enough of the stuff to get through it
Mm-hmm.
in a timely fashion. Do you have recommendations on how you do that?
Yes. I've been a single mom for a long time, and we had the same problem. Like, we couldn't get through stuff fast enough. So there's a couple ideas of what you can do. First of all, like, just make half batches. Just make enough for 1 or 2 meals. And I find to save my kitchen prep time, like I want to spend as little time in the kitchen as possible, I just eat the same thing for a couple days. So like I'll make this cheese sauce and I'll eat it for dinner and then I'll eat it for lunch the next day. If it's too much, make a half batch. A lot of these things can be frozen, so I find that I also get into a pickle when I have a really busy day and then I need something to eat right away. If I make too much, I can freeze it, and then when I need a quick meal later, you just take it out of the freezer and it's quick like that. Also, we have like a little tiny for like cooked grains and cooked beans and stuff. I've got one of the little tiny crock pots, and it like holds maybe 3 cups or 4 cups. It's really small. So I find if I just make really small batches of stuff, that helps. And then freezing it and saving it for later so I don't have to cook at a different time, that helps. Is that helpful or not so much? Okay. And more questions? Yes? If you want, yeah, it's best to do that. However, if you get water into your peanut butter, it's not going to last as long. So if you do that, you're going to have to eat the peanut butter. If you soak them first, you're going to have to eat the peanut butter pretty quickly so it doesn't go bad. There's a couple options. The long option is soak them, dry them out, and then process them. Or you can process them with the water in them. Just make sure it stays in the fridge and you eat it pretty quickly. So those are your 2 options if you want to soak the peanuts. Yes? Sometimes it goes both ways. I've heard of people being fine with it and other people not. I teach intuitive eating, which means if you don't know, try it and listen to your body. Most people don't know how to listen to their body. They just stuff their face and then they feel like crap, but they don't know it. So try it, and then if you feel great when you're done, fine. If you don't feel great, then put it aside for later. Uh-huh.
When I eat something, now I can really tell that I'm not supposed to.
Awesome.
There's a big reaction now if I go back and eat something I used to eat.
Good. How did you get to the point where you started noticing? Was it just paying attention, or did you do something?
The reaction was so strong, I went, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Cool. And most people aren't in touch with their bodies. We're not taught to be. In our culture. Good. And in our culture, we're not taught. We're just taught to think, oh, gosh, I got a headache. I better take some Advil or something, you know? We're not taught to think, oh, okay, my body's trying to tell me something. And when you get into that mindset, thank you for bringing that up. When you get into that mindset where, your body reactions that your body's giving you, it's not for nothing. You don't have a headache for nothing or a stomach ache, or you're not bloated or gaining weight for no reason. There's a reason. It's your body trying to communicate. Your body is so intelligent, and we just need to learn how to listen to our body and respond to what our body's asking for. Especially when we're going on raw food, vegan, gluten-free diets. Not only do you need to pay attention what not to eat, so pay attention to what your body's saying stay away from, but you also need to pay attention to what your body's asking for. I have people that tell me that they have wild sugar cravings or fat and salt cravings, and my response to that is, your body is trying to tell you something. Your body's trying to tell you, I need carbohydrates. If you're having a sugar craving, there's two things that usually cause sugar cravings. Number one is you need carbohydrates, but you need a healthy form of carbohydrates. So not sugar, not high fructose corn syrup, not a candy bar, but you need fruit or grain or some kind of whole food sweetener like honey or whole honey or whole maple syrup. The second reason people crave sugar is because they're severely dehydrated. And what your body wants is that sugar, because sugar is osmotic and it brings water to it. So generally, if you're craving sugar, go drink a pint or two of water and your sugar craving will go away. So if you have sugar cravings, drink water and then feed your body healthy carbohydrates. If you're having salt cravings, drink water, and if that doesn't work, eat foods that have a high sodium content. So like celery has a very high, healthy sodium content that helps to balance out your electrolytes in your body. There's other things that will help to balance the salt and the electrolytes in your body. That is why your body is craving salt. If your body wants fat, give your body fat in the form of nuts or avocados or olives or some healthy kind of fat. So you not only need to listen to when your body says, don't do that anymore, but you need to listen to your body when it's asking for things as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you very much. Also, is there a substitute for nutritional yeast is so great that it seems to react with it? Maybe it's what I've been eating with, but is there anything you can supplant that with?
No, not that I've found. Maybe there is, but not that I've found. But like for instance, with this cheese sauce, it'll still be good. It just won't have that cheesy yeast flavor to it. It'll still be great. So if you can't handle nutritional yeast, leave it out. And I find that if you put in a little bit of like tamari, which is a healthy soy sauce, that gives it that kind of flavor as well. So maybe instead of putting in salt, use tamari, and so that'll give it that rich kind of that rich flavor instead of the yeast. So try that. That's what I would do if it was me. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. So soy is, I recommend against soy unless the soy has been fermented. Now once you ferment soy, it breaks down the phytic acid and the enzyme inhibitors and all the proteins that your body can't digest. Those are digested during the fermentation process. So the caveat to don't eat soy is unless it's fermented. So the fermented soy products are namashoyu, tamari, and both of those are healthy soy sauces that have been fermented. Tempeh, miso, and natto. So those are the soy products that have been fermented. So not only do they contribute to the healthy bacteria flora, they give you probiotics and contribute to your flora, but they've already been pre-digested, so you can handle the soy in them. Ask your body. Try it and see how you feel. And a lot of people that can't handle grains, once the grains have been fermented, then they can handle them. Like me, for instance, I am severely gluten intolerant, but if I ferment my like I use spelt instead of wheat, so if I ferment it, if I'm making waffles or pancakes or whatever, if I ferment it overnight in a bacteria culture, then I can make pancakes or waffles out of it and I don't have a reaction. If I don't soak it or ferment it, then I do have a reaction. So it depends, it varies from person to person. You just have to try it and see what works for you. A month or two ago, I taught an unleavened bread class, and all of my fermented grain recipes are in that unleavened bread recipe book. So you can buy, I have a list of like 20 different recipe books that I offer for sale. So if you're interested, you can just email me, and I can send you an email with the list of the recipe books, and you can choose which ones you like. Yes? I have found that many people react negatively to, are you talking about Bragg's amino acids? Most people that I've talked to, they don't do well with Bragg's amino acids. They do better with tamari or namashoyu. Because of the processing of the amino acids, it produces, I might be saying this wrong, so if I misspeak, sorry, it produces a glutamic acid. So monosodium glutamate is MSG. Glutamic acid is like a cousin of MSG, and it processes, that is what is made during the processing of the amino acids. So a lot of people get MSG reactions from that because of the way it's processed. So again, it's a matter of trying it out, seeing how you feel. The general symptoms for being intolerant to MSG or glutamic acid is usually like a headache, feeling tired, feeling really thirsty, dry mouth, that kind of stuff, or a stomach ache. So if you get any of those kind of symptoms or you don't feel good after eating it, then your body can tell you. There's a few people that can, but most people I've talked to can't tolerate it. Any other questions? Okay, awesome. So I'd just like to thank you all for coming. How'd you like the macaroni and cheese? Very nice. Loved it? Okay. So I'd like to thank you all for coming. Please visit my website. On my website, I've got recipes and videos of video demonstrations of how to make different foods. I'm working on getting my new website up that shows you how to, that has a store. So I don't have a store yet. If you're interested in my cookbooks, please sign up in the back. $20 for the gluten-free cookbook and the Getting Started Guide for today. And then if you're interested in some of my other recipe books, just email me and I can send you the list and you can purchase it that way. I should have my online store up in a couple months, but for now I can just email you the list and you can choose from that. And yes? They're PDF books, so it's a digital cookbook. It's got 25 or 30 recipes in it, and what will happen is if you pay for it today, I will email it out before Wednesday or Thursday. So, no computer? Okay, if you don't have a computer, email me and we'll work something out. But generally, it's just a PDF file. So the cool thing about PDF files is you can search and have it on all your computers and download it onto your Kindle and stuff. So, so if you're interested in the recipe book, see Brian afterwards. And if you have any questions, I'll stay after for a few minutes to
What's your web address?
cafejanae.com. Thank you. And my email is janae@cafejanae.com. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, so it'll be more gluten-free recipes with a holiday focus. I know the holidays are so hard for people because they're like, oh, I've got all this food that I want to eat and all these events that I have to go to. What am I going to do? So it'll be focused on holiday foods that are gluten-free, that are tasty, something that you can take to a family event or a party or a business event that people will still like to eat, but you can eat it as well if you're gluten-free.